Munga, where of course we get to keep you updated on the latest in sports. Well, at the moment, not much, but there's still conversations around sports that we shall be having with various guests here in studio. And also we shall be updating you on other matters, be it business, be it, well, everything from health to, well, business, sports. We shall be giving you those updates in between the show. Now, we're going to be starting off the show with an interview about sports management, whereby in studio we're joined by Judith Macharia and Njoki. But before we do that, maybe we can have a look at what's in store. So kindly, the reporter's diary for today. So welcome back, and always remember that you can send us your feedback on the show via our social media platforms on Facebook at KBC Channel 1, and that also goes for Twitter at KBC Channel 1. Well, now, as I mentioned just minutes ago, our first interview today revolves around sports management. And as much as we don't have a lot of sports activity happening because of the COVID-19 pandemic, well, we can always talk of measures and, things or policies to be worked on just to make sports better, just in case, just in case when the pandemic comes to a close. So in studio, we're joined by Judith Njoki Macharia, who is the Managing Director of Arrow Sports. So, Judith, first of all, welcome to Channel 1. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Now, maybe before we delve deeper into the issue of sports management, maybe you can tell us, how did you even get into sports management in the first place, considering in Kenya it's not that common?
That's actually the reason why I decided to do it, because I believe sports management is something that is really crucial in the sports industry. We should stop looking at sports from just an entertainment point of view and start looking at it from a commercial point of view. We need to start figuring out ways on how we could use this to develop our economies, not just for the nation itself, for the people as well. So that's one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about athletes and just seeing them grow, doing what they love most, and that gives me joy. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you're the Managing Director, of course, at Arrow Sports. Can you at least tell us what it entails, actually, like the job description and sports management and what you guys do?
Right. At Arrow Sports, we are not really like an agency as what everyone else would assume it to be. We focus on developing talents through football. This doesn't just look at the football talents of the player. We want to make football more, looking at it from an economic perspective, in terms of providing a financial education for the players that we have on our program, providing brand development strategies for them, promoting their social media and all of those things. I believe they're part of the parcel in trying to configure sports management in itself. Practically, the term in itself, sports management, means coordinating resources, through others. It might be resources, financial, human resources, physical resources, all of those things, towards pursuing certain predetermined goals, which in this case is developing the game and at the same time generating revenue for the game. And this is where Arrow Sports comes in, through what we know could support an athlete in terms, it's a long-term development strategies. We should stop looking at athletes as just, sport. They're not going to be playing football all of your life, Yeah. You need to start thinking about retirement and your brand in itself. You don't want it fading away just because your time of play has expired. Okay. So that's practically it.
So first of all, you said instilling the knowledge, that is the education on the whole sports management issue, brand, promoting the brand of the specific players and whatnot. But then again, you guys are also involved in, the transfer market.
Right.
So how exactly does that work here in Kenya? Because we've had cases, actually numerous cases. Earlier this year, we had a case whereby a player apparently, allegedly signed for another club abroad, actually. But then again, you had the club saying, hey, no, that's not the case. He's still a player of this club,
Right.
still registered for this season. So maybe how do you go about such issues?
Good question. The issue of transfers is something that we need to start looking at it from the athlete's perspective. The athletes, most of them are not aware of their rights, getting into the transfer business, especially these upcoming players. So it's really important that we try to educate them and try to let them know this is how you're supposed to go about it. And in our Kenyan setting, that's not something that we get to see a lot, Players don't even know how their contract, they just go ahead and sign a contract without realizing it. Sometimes in the kind of situation that you mentioned, it's an issue with the management trying to pull all of these side strings that are not allowed to happen, are not supposed to be happening in football, but they still go ahead and do it. And this is where we say in sports management, we need to start looking at it from the leadership, It's the responsibility of the leadership to make sure that these things go the right way. And if they're the same people who are going to go back and doing things the wrong way, that already is a problem in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that you have some players who actually don't know what, the
Yeah.
content of their contract is with different clubs.
Right.
But then again, does that mean that, well, the clubs, we have various welfare associations that are meant,
Right.
not necessarily, they don't really, some can actually argue that they're letting the players down. But do you think sports management having, as you said, it's
Right.
not an agency, but you get what I'm trying to say, the
Right.
gist of
Yes.
it really.
Yes.
Do you think that is the solution to maybe, catering for the welfare of the players instead of having these welfare associations that basically don't do much for the players?
I think they go both hand in hand because if you educate them on their rights, you still need to let them know that you have these people where you can go to in case you feel that your rights have been infringed, and that's where the associations come in. I think practically KEFA have been doing a fairly good job, in the past recent years, and I think it's good progress, and more should be done in terms of educating the players and understanding who they are as a brand. We even recently had a player whose image was used in a betting company, and this guy is a great player, one of the legends of the game, and you find that his image is just used in such ways without even him knowing, without letting him know, and all the image rights they're supposed to go to him. This is already a problem, and this is a high-profile player, and this happens to someone like him. So you can only imagine a grassroots player. They have nothing they could do. I mean, if you just see your image there, you're like, okay, maybe this is actually a good thing. People will get to know me because people don't even know me in the first place. So I think we need to develop proper structures that let players understand their value as athletes themselves. Yeah.
Okay. Would you, if you don't mind, of course, take us through the whole process of the transfer, and also later you can tell us about the image rights, because what constitutes, how should different, let's say, media, be it radio, be it TV, be it such, the corporates, such as the companies you're talking about, the betting companies, to what extent does it come off as, using the image inappropriately?
Yes.
At what point do you say, hey, that's enough, that's marketing, and we demand that at least our players should be given a deal, a certain percentage of, let's say, the profits when it comes to certain products and whatnot. At what point does that come in exactly? Because we have different media using...
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And as you can see also during the, not so long ago actually, during the preparations for the Olympics, we had different stations using some of the players, of course, to promote their station, and at the same time you find that it's not really a deal that they had made,
Absolutely,
exactly. So maybe you can explain the extent to which media can use the rights of a player without infringing on.
Good question. With regards to that, I think the fact that this issue of image rights is not something we discuss in our Kenyan context, to be honest. We even had a debate with someone online. They were saying image rights of players, and they're like, what do you mean image rights? No one cares about KPL. No one, what is it going to do for the players, These are things that people think just because KPL is not like the Premier League or something like that, we're supposed to ignore image rights of these players. It's something as simple as using a player's image on a poster on your socials without letting them know. That's something. considered as infringement, you need to let the players know. And this is something that is also supposed to be the players' responsibility in terms of making the brand aware, developing this social media. We have social media now. It has come in to solve some of these issues. If you want to use someone's image, you can just go ahead and talk to them. This is how you can be able to develop. Maybe you're just using it for charity. Maybe you wouldn't even consider wanting any profits from that. It's something that we need to the negotiation and putting the athlete as someone who's practically important, the public figure that he is. That's how we need to prioritize them, I think, and that's a problem with how we view our athletes in Kenya. We just view them as just, the players. You don't view them as crucial, like important people in the society whose value needs to be understood. So this is where players need to develop their profiles, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of these things. It's important that they have all of these profiles where if this image is used, you can be able to go back to them and sue these people. I think Wanyama's image was used a while back, I think last year.
Yeah.
And this is a high-profile player. If they're able to do something like that on someone like him, you can only imagine what it will do to someone else. So he had the right connections and he was able to sue them. So this kind of access to these resources is also something that players are not able to have. If you see someone using your photo, does he have access to a lawyer? That's something you need to ask. The sports law thing is also something that we don't get to see often. So getting to even have someone who will be able to get to it and understand the value as well, it's something that we are still struggling with as an industry in Kenya.
Okay. Now, Judith, most players, it's fair to say that most players in Kenya are actually quite shy.
Right.
Because it's actually quite difficult sometimes to actually get these guys to speak up. And then therein you guys come in.
Yeah.
You're branding the player, you're marketing the player, you're supposed to improve their image, the brand image and whatnot on social media platforms everywhere. But then again, how do you get to do that for especially a lot of athletes, be it footballers, rugby players or whatever, how do you get to actually promote that brand considering they're not that visible? And first of all, some sports, people are not, you need to develop the interest first for those sports, when it comes to the public. But how do you go about that when most people don't even know who that person is?
Good question. So how do you even get to know who this person is if this person doesn't even come out, on the social medias? And that's something we are struggling with, honestly, because the idea of being shy, I mean, you can't just say you're being shy and you're going to be comfortable in that situation. At a time when technology is taking over the sports industry, like this COVID-19 during this pandemic, we don't get to have sports activities happening, so we have to tap into the digital to be able to still get things moving. So if you're not able to get into this, what are you going to... It really brings in such a challenging situation where what happens after the pandemic, what happens to your profile? And that's also something we've seen in the clubs. What are they still doing in their social medias during this time? Because I believe this is just the perfect place to be able to get discussions and conversations happening even when all of these things are going on. So, and with the players who are still shy, I believe it's something they need. It's an initiative they need to take. You can't just say you're shy and that's one reason. There's a lot of market in the digital industry. If we don't tap into that, I believe it's going to be a huge blunder. And we can even look at players like Milner. James Milner happens to be a very quiet guy, shy, I'd say. Yeah. But if you see his social media, you will not even believe he's the same guy.
True.
So getting to understand the value of social media and overcoming your personal fears and all of those things that you consider to be your comfort zone, I think we need to get away from that, because we are not even sure how this is going to last. So we need to start developing ways on how to make football relevant up until now, even when no football activity is happening. And that's still on the clubs as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's speak more literally. Assume I'm a football player. Let's say play for... Well, I'm obviously going to say, let's say for Parker, which is the team I support locally. Let's say play for that team.
Yeah.
And I've come to you guys I need you to manage my brand.
Right.
Sell me out there. How do you go about that? Do you get me involved in, let's say, community-based, activities and whatnot? Do you come to marches and maybe get some clips of me and highlights and post them on social media? How do you go about that?
Yes, that happens to be the starting point. To make a player visible, you need to make his skill visible as well. You can't just be saying this player is this and that without even showing what he can do or what he's doing on the pitch. And there's also the community-based activities that you mentioned. You can engage in some social campaigns, like we could use like the pandemic where people are distributing food and all of those things. That could be a way to develop a brand. We could also look at the player in themselves and what they do. I think it's really important that we get to show who they are. You might just show your training session, you working out. That's still something, on your brand. We could also have these campaigns, like something that we did recently with Arrow. We have a white card campaign. This is something that is done on the International Day for Sport and Development. So you have a white card that you hold in support of peace, which is supposed to be the opposite of the red card, so the white card. So we had players come in the campaign. This is a global campaign with players like Drogba. All of those people were involved in this campaign. So by them engaging in such projects, they're becoming visible. Just doing the hashtag white card, you'll have your name there. You'll have all of the things happening. Random thing, like we also have a segment that we recently launched called the 2-minute drill.
Yes.
So this is where the players just have random questions. What it is that you do when you wake up in the morning, just random discussions to just give us a different perspective of an athlete as not just an athlete, but also as a normal person that you can just be able to converse with and have conversations with. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You've mentioned about the different campaigns, initiatives, maybe as footballers do, as you mentioned, the white card. You have the likes of Drogba, and you have different campaigns, be it for for corporations or otherwise, whereby they have these legendary players coming over and actually, being the face of their company. But are we there yet? In Kenya, let's be honest, are we there yet? And what do we need to do to make sure that even if we don't get there in the next 5 years, at least we've set this pace that maybe in 10 years or 15 years, things will be different?
When it comes to the corporate side, I believe this is an issue we've had for so many years. Guys complaining that the corporate is not so involved in the sports sector. But for me, when it comes to, again, the issue of sports management and the kind of structure and the image that the management in sports has created it to be like, has probably made corporates a little bit hesitant with regards to venturing into the industry. And also the issue of athletes being comfortable in that, the nutshell, but I think it's a good time. Athletes are getting more aware of this and their social media and what it can do for them. And corporates are actually looking to engage more. And we may not be there yet, but I believe we are making incredible strides. And it also calls for the resilience from the athletes to be able to pursue these things. We need to start thinking about more ways of how to develop a player beyond just the field, and more awareness is being created on this. And I've really seen athletes do the most when it comes to their socials in Kenya. It's really impressive. And clubs as well. I mean, we have Kariobangi Sharks, Wazito FC, and I think Macharia United have verified their pages on Instagram. So that's a good step, as much as we are not exactly where we want to be, but it's a good step, really good step. Yeah.
Another point, of course, corporates being accused of not being interested in sports in the country. Many factors, of course, affect that and influence that. But then again, we've had so many, chances of talking to athletes themselves, coaches, even CEOs and heads of federations about what it is they think they're doing wrong to a point that corporates are not interested in sponsoring sports, whatever discipline. But then again, maybe from a sports management perspective, what do you think needs to be done more by these federations when it comes to promoting different sports federations for corporates to actually be interested? Because most times, really, you can actually understand some sentiments raised by corporations when it comes to sponsorships and whatnot.
Right.
But then again, what do we need to do to get to a point whereby, well, the league is fully sponsored? We have, out of 18 teams in the KPL, you have at least 15 that at a time you can't say they're struggling to even pay their players or even sustain basic needs and whatnot.
Yes.
Just give us a fresh pair of eyes on that issue.
Yes. Very important. Corporates, I think, have been hesitant because of the management and the structure that they've set up in terms of marketing the game in itself. If a corporate wants to invest in your team, they're going to invest in it because they hope to get something from it. And if they don't see what they're going to get from it, there's no way they're going to come in. And there's also the Kenyan Premier League, recently the FKF, if they're soon to take over the Kenyan Premier League. They said they're going to they bought an OB van to be able to broadcast matches and etc. And that's okay. We need to have matches being aired for people to actually even know these players that we're talking about. But they need to start developing proper structures, and I mean proper, not just these jokes that they bring about, like proper structures. We need to start to look at sport from a commercialization perspective. If they're going to complain that corporates are not coming on board, they need to ask why. Okay, one, mismanagement of funds. That's something. The kind of politics that happen in the FKF is something else. That's another discussion for another day. And also having this leadership that truly believes in sport. That's something that we've not really seen it, stemming from just right from the national government all the way down. It's not really something that we've seen. The aggressiveness in trying to pursue sports commercially, that's not really something we've seen. And it has reflected on the game, it has reflected on the clubs and the players as well. So we need to start looking at it from a commercial perspective. This is also a responsibility of the clubs, trying to look at more ways on how they're going to generate revenue and at the same time develop the game. So this is paraphernalia like the jerseys, like having a proper structure in terms of where if they sell this jersey, the money that they're going to get from it just comes back to the club. And this is not something that we have. You see a lot of people with Gor Mahia jerseys, but if you look at the Gor Mahia that is struggling now, they're not supposed to be struggling if you have all of this happening. So if they're going to sell their jerseys, if they're going to have the gate revenues, we need to also think about like more ways on how we could be able to market the game and at the same time generate profit from it. And that's not something that we've been doing in the field of sports in Kenya. I strongly believe so. Yeah.
Okay, interesting that it's interesting you've brought up the Gor Mahia issue, because it is the most supported club in Kenya, honestly. The biggest fan base, one of the oldest clubs, most successful in the country.
Right.
But why is the formula not working for them? As you mentioned, they have jerseys and whatnot, and in the recent seasons, past years, we've seen them participate in the CAF Champions League, the CAF Confederations Cup, and quite a lot of money actually comes from that.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then again, at a point, as we find ourselves in, even before the COVID-19 pandemic, we still had issues with players saying, hey, we're not being paid. So what exactly is not working for them? Is it mismanagement by the leaders of the club? Or?
First of all, for me, the one thing I believe is the biggest issue in the sports industry in Kenya is constantly just looking at athletes as just means to an end, These are the same people who put these leaders in these positions. If it wasn't for these players, you people will not have jobs, And that's something they need to just get into their heads straight up for us to even have that conversation. So secondly, the mismanagement and the lack of proper structures in terms of making sure that the revenue that is generated from the club comes back to the club. This means that you need to have like distributors. You say, okay, you're going to be distributing these jerseys and this and that, and then making sure these fans come back to the club. This is also something concerning the gate tickets and how they manage them. And I think there's so many avenues we could be able to generate these funds. And I think the commercialization itself has not really been instilled in our football, and that's the biggest problem. So it's really sad that players have to be the ones who get to pay for these things, and they really don't deserve it. But I really believe we could develop more ways to generate revenue beyond just depending on the funds that we get from the Kenyan Premier League. Yeah.
Okay. Now, of course, remember that you can get involved in the conversation through our social media platforms, is where you can send us your feedback at KBC Channel 1 on Facebook and also at KBC Channel 1 on Twitter. And you can also reach Judith on many other questions at Judith_Macharia on Twitter. And speaking of feedback, we actually have one here, and it's a question actually directed to you from one Baba Akeo. He's popularly known as Baba Akeo, one of the stakeholders when it comes to volleyball. He says, don't forget about volleyball too. And how do you create linkages with the corporate world to invest in sports? Because we've been doing that, but it doesn't seem to be working.
Right.
Maybe what are the strategies besides what we've been doing currently?
Right.
Because you see, for a team, let's say for sport like volleyball, you can't really say that they don't perform to a point that corporates can't be interested. Volleyball is one of the best sports in the country.
Absolutely, yeah.
Has most the teams that actually perform the best besides the athletes when it comes to racing and whatnot.
Completely true, yeah.
But why are corporates then not as invested in, something like volleyball in the country? You only have institutions coming in to support. You have very few corporates, really. KCB has been instrumental in, sponsoring many events, many sports clubs. But how do you get more corporates to come into the game?
Right. And we said it from the beginning, corporates have been very, very hesitant when it comes to investing in sports in Kenya. And even KCB that you mentioned, yes, it's funding the clubs, but do you ever see a player, say, in the KCB club being used for an endorsement? I don't think so. So that already brings something, you need to see that. I try to understand if it's just the idea that they think sports people don't understand it themselves, but I believe it's something that we need to deal with from the corporate's perspective. Them wanting to invest in sports, and they've been really lenient. I think so. Honestly, I think so. There's a lot they could do, but they've not been doing, and it's a challenge for them. And I've been complaining so much about that. They need to start investing more in sports, and we could show this by, like, the social media, the digital part. If you're able to market these players as brands. When I say brand, it's a player looking at your following on social media. A company will see this player and, okay, yeah, the kind of people this person will attract, it will bring this and that. And so that's a really good question that the person asked when it comes to developing the solution to that. So if a club, or say volleyball in itself, it's a huge sport. And as you mentioned, one of the best performing sport in Kenya. So we need to start, when you say you're developing like a social media, okay, think about it in a social media perspective. I don't want to give a random name of a player. But say I'm a volleyball player and I do this 1, 2, 3 things. If you're able to find a way to align values of a certain corporate company into your social media, that is always a one way to sell. If you're going to be talking about, if you want to approach, if you're talking about Adidas, let's say, you'll rock the Adidas pants and all that, and tag Adidas. That's one way. They're able to identify you, And as much as the one-off thing will not happen, doing consistently will definitely bring more people on board. And we need to stop looking at it from a, top-bottom approach, rather doing it the bottom-up approach, because we've tried the top-bottom and it's not working anymore. So we need to start taking the initiative ourselves as athletes and as the people who are the stakeholders who are just directly working with the athletes in terms of developing these brands. And I insist, LinkedIn is one of the most growing platforms when it comes to attracting sponsors, attracting the right partners. But you don't see athletes in LinkedIn because they think LinkedIn is LinkedIn. So we need to start looking at it from a wider perspective. Let's just not limit ourselves to one or two things. We could do so much with this digital technology that we've been given. This is a huge opportunity that we could use to tap into these potentials of our sports people. And there's a lot more opportunities that we could have there, a lot more.
Okay. Now, I wanted to ask you, of course, tell us about the challenges, but first of all, let's talk about this. Let's say I'm signed to your agent. You should actually clear that up. Since you said it's not an agency, what should they refer to? What should they call it? Arrow Sports Management. Let's say an organization.
Yeah.
Since you said no to the agency bit. Let's say I'm signed to your organization.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm not receiving my payment,
Right.
my salary from my club in time. How do you go about that? Is it legally, is it appropriate legally to actually say, hey, don't agree to participate in the match up until you're paid? But then again, I have to play
Right.
to be visible to the fans. How would you go about such a situation?
We've seen that happen before, where players are not paid. But when it comes to a club setting, if people are not being paid, are you the only one who is not being paid? Ask that question. So we've had players turning to boycotts and all of those things in protest, failing to show up for matches because they've not been paid. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So if a club chooses not to pay people, we need to start, if you're going to mediate, you might not choose to go to court immediately because that's not always advised, but you could choose to mediate. So getting to understand why are they not paying you.
Sorry to cut you short, but why shouldn't I go to court?
Mediation. We need to start negotiating. Negotiating is really important in sport. So if you don't negotiate, you just go ahead and sue them, and they have valid claims as to why they're not able to pay you. It's always advised to take up the shorter, not the shorter, but I mean the less hostile, strategies first.
Some will call that settling for less.
No. It's negotiating, getting to understand why are they not paying you. So they'll come up with the issue of lack of funds, this and that. So it's easier if I'm going to go to court as a person. It's easier if we go together, for the collective bargain. When you're all together, it's easier because this is a club, has its reasons as to why they're not paying you. Because if you happen to go to court and just sue them, this could ruin your career. In the Kenyan context, there's always this discussions happening behind the scenes. So if you go to sue this club, they probably tell this other club, oh, you saw what this guy did. Oh my God, yeah. And considering the Kenyan context, this issue of not being paid happens almost every time. So we need to just develop a less hostile strategy to be able to save yourself. So negotiating, understanding why. And then if nothing feasible comes up, then now you can choose to go to court. And that's not something that we've done so much in this Kenyan context, because you'd find that, honestly, these clubs just can't help you. They can't just do anything. It's going to be a long push and pull, and that's why you find players settling for less. It's not because they choose to, but sometimes they don't really have a better option.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Okay, now maybe you can tell us, since, getting into sports management, most of the challenges, because, the whole gig being relatively new here in Kenya, sports management for such an organization as yours. Maybe you can talk about the challenges that you guys have been facing, and maybe some of the milestones that you can say, hey, despite this and that, we actually made it here from point A to point B.
Right. Oof, challenges, there's so many. Right from the kind of attitudes that you receive concerning this topic of sports management. It's not something that you get to see every day or probably even understand. People believe that you can lead in sports but don't understand why you need to have the business niche, and that's something that we're not seeing in the industry. People just think, okay, I love sports, I'm passionate, but are you really bringing in the business side? Or are you just going to manage it, you know? And that's something that we've been struggling with. Again, the mismanagement when it comes to the funds, you know, there's not much cash that is flowing in actual sense when it comes to the sports industry. And then even less when you still have this shortage of funds are still missing, you know, and that's a really crucial. I believe that's one of the biggest challenges in our sports industry at the moment. Lack of proper structures and managing the finances of the sports industry. Another big problem will be making people understand what commercializing is, because you even said it yourself. People don't understand how they could be able to market this game in itself, because for one, we are not even able to broadcast games, you know, so how are they going to know about a player if they don't even see the player? So that's a huge challenge, and you guys just have to make the long strides to even make a player known. But as much as all that is said and done, I think greatest challenge, our biggest milestone, I think, will be what we did with the Peace and Sport campaign, the White Card campaign. It's very recent, but I mean, I loved it. It was something that was so simple, but we were able to get so many players on board. And also in our Arrow Sports initiative, we like to focus on upcoming athletes, because as much as this other players are already made, if I like to use that word, made, we also have this upcoming players who have a bigger struggle as compared to these other players. And having these young players just coming on board, it really just makes us glad that we are able to develop their brands and also, you know, make them known. And they've been really aggressive themselves, and that's something I'm so excited to see every day, that they themselves, you just ask them to do this thing and they're like, yes, sure, and they're jumping on it. And that kind of aggression is what we need from athletes and every other person, you know, all other stakeholders in sports coming together to really redefine sports and make it more commercialized than what everyone else assumes it to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, before we wind up, of course, how often do you have a situation whereby your organization, any sports management organization, be it yours or maybe another one, how often do we see these clashes with the management of the teams when it comes to transfers? How often do we see, you know, such a situation?
Well, sometimes, as I mentioned, when a player doesn't understand what the contract had in the first place, so when it comes to either them renewing their contracts or they want to leave, that's when you have these challenges. And they may be often, but not so often. They've reduced, honestly, they've reduced. But at the same, we still have it happening every now and then. Like even players, let alone the issue with what happened, what you mentioned before. We also have sometimes a player is just, you know, cut off from the team. You know, what happened with the Western Steamer players when their contracts are just, you know, because they didn't have money, and now you're injured and you're cut off. You know, what does that even mean for you? So this one of the key issues, and I think. Clubs have really, as much as clubs are doing a great job in terms of truly looking at the players, I don't think they're doing enough, you know, protecting the players themselves and looking out for their interests. You know, you can't expect people to just continue to play and you don't pay them. You don't expect players to be happy because you just cut them off because they got injured while playing for your team. That is wrong, and I think those players should have sued the club. They were in a position to sue them, but you know, again, what happens? They're not in a position to sue the club because it's a club and they're players. They don't have lawyers. They don't have all of these things. So I think we have a long way to go, and I really believe there's a lot more we could do for the players themselves, and truly understanding that the leadership in sports is the solution to all of this. If we need to start understanding what this leadership will do. There's so much money that comes in, and this money should be used to develop the game. And if it's not being used for that purpose, then people are using it the wrong way. So this is not just the leadership that continues to use sports as just a shop I own, you know. You need to start looking at ways, if you're going to invest in it, how much money are we going to make from it, you know? Just stop looking at it from, okay, we are receiving funds from FIFA, oh yeah, we have money, but we need to start making this money grow, double the profits, double all of these things.
Yeah.
And I believe it's something that leadership in sports school definitely think about.
Now, finally, speaking of money, I was this close to forgetting that transfers are actually one of your secondary roles and whatnot as a sports management organization. But let's say I'm a player, I want to move to a different team, and you're negotiating a deal for me from a different team, within the other team, that is.
Yeah.
How do you tell my worth?
Right. Good question. This is something that is determined by the player's experience, one, and the value that they bring to a team, you know. That's something that is always foreseen, like right even before the transfer is made, even before they decide to even make the transfer. So we come in with a player handling. So if I'm going to advise a player, this is the team that could really have your interests, you know. I'm a player, I know my worth, I've done this and that, I've done this and that. Bringing in the aspect of image rights as well, that's something that's not mostly factored in our sports when you're calculating the value of a player. We are really battling with that, by the way, in terms of valuating players. So it's a real struggle. But I think by just understanding the players' experience and the input that they bring, and you know, looking at you can't just. There's some players, man. There's this 16-year-old. I don't even think he's 17. The one who is in Omala. I think you know him. Yeah. I mean, could you even determine the value of that player? I can't.
It's actually interesting that you mentioned that, because my next question was going to be, is it really experience that determines how much I'm worth, or is it the potential that I seem to have? Because when you look at, let's give an example of Europe, whereby you have popular leagues, the EPL, La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A, and the likes. We are at a time currently where, well, it's not right now because of COVID-19 and whatnot, but we're at a situation whereby me as a player, let's say I'm 19 years old, and I want to make a major move. You have the perfect example, Haaland, moved from Salzburg in Austria and went to Borussia Dortmund in Germany. But then again, Haaland, when it comes to different teams, depending on whichever team is fighting for the play, if it's Real, Barcelona, United, obviously the player doesn't come cheap.
Yes,
I understand. But as a younger player, United, for instance, was willing, you know, to shell out, let's say, 70 million pounds to sign, what, a 18, 19, 20-year-old. But then again, you have an experienced player. Can we give, we have many examples, really, Luka Modric and whatnot, who you can actually tell, hey, he was a World Cup finalist, whatnot, he has won whatever Champions League or the titles with Real Madrid. But then again, you find for such a player, Luka Modric or Toni Kroos, they'll only be sold for, let's say, 30 million pounds. And you have a youngster actually making clubs outbid each other, paying 80, 90 million pounds. How exactly is that? How do you differentiate the two?
So there's that aspect of the potential. Potential exists. And you can imagine someone who has experience and has almost the same, and still has the potential, but still has the experience. Definitely they're going to go for a higher price as compared to even Haaland himself. So we're going to bring it to our context in Kenya. So picture this, you're this player that just came out from Chapadimba, let's say, and you're like, you made highlights in the Chapadimba, but maybe clubs were not really aware of this player, you know. So if I go up to them and I'm like, oh yeah, I have this player, he's this and that, he's this and that. Do you know what the chances of them taking up this player are going to be? Between 20 to 30, because why? He hasn't made a name for himself. There's always that, especially in our Kenyan context. They fear treading into these grounds of younger players. I think it's not even fear. I think it's just the idea that, okay, they haven't made a name. And I think that's really wrong for them to do that. They need to start understanding that potential is something they need to consider. And for clubs that take up this, task of even signing these players, we commend them. But this, especially this top tier clubs, there's a lot of nuances that come in when it comes to signing a player. A lot that you will not even understand. Very funny things, but yeah. Like, if I go up to them, I'm like, okay, yeah, this player is young, and they're like, okay, we don't know him, you know. Or sometimes they tell you, so how much are you willing to pay? Yeah. You know, this is not the transfer money. This is something, you know, just on the downside, you know. They don't need to know this for them to even consider signing this player. And this is someone who has potential. So, you know, a Kenyan market, potential is not something that they really consider. Yeah. And which is wrong, but they should really consider. Yeah.
Okay. Now, parting shots, of course, the viewers, and tell us, of course, how do you see the sports management industry, you know, panning out in the next 5-10 years, assuming all this, the pandemic will be over soon.
Yeah. So it's interesting that we're at a time and age when sports management is a key discussion. We've had sports education, like master's program and all of the undergrad and everything that focus on sports management, and I believe that already highlights the key need to have this in our industries. In the Kenyan context also, I think we need to be very critical in terms of analyzing our leadership, and I just saw that one of the ex-FKF leaders is coming back on the table and he wants to run for presidency. You know, and it's quite interesting. You're like, okay, so what do you think of this, you know? And that's something that our sports industry really need to understand. That's something we need to phase out, you know? The kind of structures that we have in our sports management is really, really bad. I mean, we have leaders in FIFA who were considered to be corrupt and all of those things, but they had this. They turned football into a multi-billion industry. True. And that's also a nuance in the sports industry. So, are you going to look at the character of the management in terms of, are they corrupt? Are they this and that? But are they bringing in? You know, delivery is also something we need to consider, and it's really a tough place. But I think we just need to have a management that is aggressive and prioritizes the player. And that's something I really like to insist on, prioritizing the players, because without these people, we will not even be here, you know. Yeah. And we need to develop proper structures that look into their welfare and develop the game as well. And at the same time, generate revenue. We need to look at sports as an industry where if I have my child who wants to become an athlete, a football player or a volleyball player, anything, basketball, if they want to be all of those things, I'd be so happy to let them do it, because I believe it's still going to cushion their futures. They're still able to sustain themselves even after their retirement. Okay. So we need to start developing proper structures in sports that just make sport more sustainable and wholesome development of the players. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And we do sincerely hope that the sports management industry will be something to look up to for most of these players and others who want to follow in the footsteps. We've been speaking to Judith Njoki Macharia, of course, the Managing Director at Rose Sports Management. And, well, quite insightful information right there. And, well, of course, on Sports Check, we shall be talking about more besides what we've been talking about with Judith. We shall be talking about sports infrastructure in our next interview. But first, let's have a look at the COVID-19 fact sheet.
Getting to severe illness, these are the people who have other underlying diseases that have made their immunity to be weak. These include people with non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, cancer, and asthma, among others, and also people who have HIV and TB, people who have low immunity, and therefore, if they get the disease, they end up having severe problems. That is, they end up getting complications and needing more intensive care, and it may lead to death. So these people need to be more protected even when they're at home. They also need to take care of themselves and make sure they're getting their medication and they are adhering to all the rules, that is washing hands, putting on masks, and keeping distance. Many of the families have gone to the supermarkets and purchased all sorts of foods and stocked their houses. And there are those who continue eating all the time because they have nothing to do. The best thing to do is to ensure that they get all the meals as required, but avoid a lot of snacks in between, especially the sugary foods, those that have high fat, and those that are starchy foods like the rice, the chapati, and foods that are going to end up adding a lot of making us add a lot of weight. Because if we don't control that, we might end up with many cases of people with non-communicable diseases, obesity and overweight, and therefore we need to ensure that we are balancing. Now, coming to nutrition, the first thing we need to ensure is that even when there is no food, children are protected, because if children do not have food for 1 or 2 days, they are likely to go down very fast and even die. The other group that we need to look at are also the aged. As we say, the aged are more vulnerable. They need to feed well. All of us need to feed well, as we always say. That means we need to have a variety of foods, the vegetables, the fruits, the starchy foods, the animal protein, and even plant protein, so that our bodies are able to resist any disease.
Yo, remember, ukitaka kustay safe from coronavirus, lazima ufuate hizi steps. 1. Osha mikono kila time for 20 seconds, hata unaweza imba happy birthday mara 2. 2. Usishike uso, macho na mapua yako, especially kama hujaosha mikono. 3. Ukitaka kucough, utumie tissue alafu utupe kwa dustbin ama ucough kwa elbow. 4. Avoid kuenda mahali kuna watu wengi ama kusalimia mtu na kuhug mtu. In case usikie uko mgonjwa, please ambia parents wako ama guardians wako. Let's all stay safe.
On the next episode of Elena's Ghost.
Why can't the child just be born already? I'm so sick and tired of being cooped up within these 4 walls.
Not gonna wait any longer, Julia. The moment has arrived for you to transfer the old woman's fortune to me. It's time for me to have my inheritance.
What's going on? Miss, what were you going to tell her?
I told you that I'm not going with him. Please, just call a taxi.
Elena.
KBC, in collaboration with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, is broadcasting enhanced out-of-class learning on radio, television, and online. Catch the lessons every weekday on KBC Channel 1 from 2 to 4 p.m. on KBC English Service and 15 FM from 9:15 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Radio Taifa from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. KBC English Service, Radio Taifa, and 15 FM are also available countrywide on the free-to-air Signet digital TV platform, or log on to www.kbc.co.ke for live streaming, or download the KBC Online app on Google Play Store. Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, ensuring learning no matter what.
Next on
This week on Grapevine,
we got you covered.
On March 8th, he made history with a live-streamed performance from his home that saw tens of thousands of Kenyans tune in.
Kudos to Nyashinsky. I think that's exactly how to do it. And if a Kenyan artist has done it so well in Kenya, I think so many artists can follow suit.
It's last year when I got my breakthrough, but after 2 years of going for auditions, probably almost over 15 auditions.
see you all tonight, 10 p.m. only on Grapevine.
What you gotta do?
Well, now welcome back to today's edition of Sports Check. Our sign language interpreter is Lucy Moore and I'm Richard Munga. As I mentioned before we took a break, our second interview today revolves around sports infrastructure and specifically football. In studio, we're joined by John Ken Ocheng, or Ken John Ocheng. He is the Vice Chair of the Dandora Stadium Management Committee and is here to talk to us about, well, the progress made so far and to explain why the construction of the pitch, of course, came to a halt. Currently, even before, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. So welcome to KBC Channel 1, John.
Thank you.
And maybe now, obviously, you can start by telling us the gains made when it comes to the Dandora Stadium construction, how far we've come, and maybe what remains, and then you can tell us why the construction stopped.
Okay, actually, we went through some rigorous process to start this thing in Dandora. It started around 2018 October. The pace was okay. There was daily routine work going on. By now, we are 80% on. Mm-hmm. The only thing remaining is 20%. That means only the artificial turf has not been laid and there's some finishing up work. Mm-hmm. So when it's installed, I believe there was some problem with the BQ, like they wanted to make it concrete, mm-hmm. but again, they made it metallic, so it brought around some issues. Mm-hmm. That's why it stalled.
Okay. And now for the stadium, of course, we've had so many teams expressing interest to play, to use that ground as their, to play their home matches. But then again, it's only viable to have maybe one or two teams. So maybe what's the process like? Are they in a, let's say, do they have to like present their case, their best case to say, hey, our biggest fan base is based in this side, so we need to have the stadium? Or how do you guys go about deciding, making the final decision on who is supposed to use the stadium?
Actually, we're open-minded with that, on the approach. But so far, we got approach from two teams. We got approach from Kariobangi Sharks. Macharia United has also showed some interest. Those are our local teams, they are the teams around there. So I think maybe they capitalize on the venue and the support base, which can be found there. So we had talks with them before the stadium stalled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, now maybe Ken, maybe you can tell us the stadium at the moment, before the construction, it was actually used as a base by many teams who used to go for training there. And as we all know, Dandora actually has quite a number of teams who play in football. Maybe not in the top tier league, but we have a lot of teams who play, at the grassroots levels. Maybe how did it get to a point whereby that you guys decided that, hey, we need to actually improve this stadium for these people, and of course bring in more fans when it comes to, example, a team like Sharks bringing their home matches to the stadium? What exactly influenced that?
Actually, Dandora has around 8 teams which play in the local tiers. Mm-hmm. 8 teams, so you can imagine the congestion which was found around the stadium. But we used to train from morning till evening. Time was being allocated by the committee, so like every team used to get a chance. Mm-hmm. So when this project came up, mm-hmm. we had to have a greater insight of what we needed to be done to support our local teams. Like this stadium brought around high hopes for revenue for the local tier teams, mm-hmm. which can be got from these teams like Sharks, which will be using there. There's some revenue which mm-hmm. has to be generated. Mm-hmm. So actually we're coming out with a plan to really try and help our 8 local teams which play in the, it's difficult to really raise funds for these teams because mm-hmm. actually the money got from these teams are from well-wishers and maybe former players who have achieved something, like they have moved to other big teams, so they come in and chip in and help the local teams. Mm-hmm. So when the stadium came up, we had to come with the idea, how can we well generate revenue so that at least we can ease the lifestyle of the local footballers who are really talented, but they are left hanging. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dandora has a really large number of talented youngsters, mm-hmm. but maybe they end up going into crime, drugs, if they are not well managed and taken care of.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was our biggest fear and motivation at the same time.
Okay. Now, in a past interview, of course, you were listening into the past interview, we were talking about sports management. Yeah. At the moment, those players, what do you think can be done to at least, even if not immediately, as very talented players, of course, yeah. What do you think can be done to at least put them on a level, not really par with the top teams in the country, which is really, a long shot, a tall order, but what can you do to ensure that at least they get to remain active on the football scene instead of maybe engaging in some of the vices you've just mentioned?
Okay, actually as a committee, what we did was we went to the local schools, the local primary schools, and we requested for our teams to be using their grounds, and which they really cooperated with us. So the youngsters kept on playing. It didn't interfere so much. We went to Ronangala Primary, Tomboya, and Wangu. Luckily we got to Ronangala and Tomboya. So they remained active for a while because the stadium was supposed to be done by August last year. So also that brought some hiccups. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because sometimes we had to pay for other grounds because you can't postpone the league matches all the time. Yeah, true. Yeah, so it was a bit heck, but we really managed. Okay. Yeah.
Now, as the management committee at the Dandora Stadium, what arrangement do you have with the county government when it comes to, running the facility, the stadium, which of course has a greater capacity as compared to the closest pitch that is certified for KPL and the NSL matches, which is Camp Toyoyo. But what arrangement do you have with the county government in regards to that?
Yeah, as a community, we came down and made a memorandum of understanding mm-hmm. with the county government. I think we served them with one copy. Also, we got some legal help from a football friend who is a lawyer. So we believe the memorandum was in order. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we were just waiting for the feedback from the county government mm-hmm. because as a community we need to have say in the management of the stadium, because before it was the stadium we were still using it. It was a community field, so activities were still going on there.
Mm-hmm. Now there was a period whereby we we've had the Ethics and Integrity Commission visit the facility on 3 occasions, if I'm not wrong. So maybe what are some of the issues that the committee, which you're the vice chair, of course, discussed and raised to the commission?
Actually, when they came, they were just making a quotation, that's going around looking at the quantity of work which had been accomplished and the quality. So it was confidential on their side, but we helped them where they asked the question. I think we cooperated with them fully.
Okay, now John.
We were like in a dilemma because we were in between the governor who was giving us a super stadium and also the ESCC. So we are like in the middle. So you have to tread carefully.
But at the end of the day, are in those some of the facilities that the government is responsible for?
Yeah. But actually, Dandora as a community felt privileged, like because the governor chose us first. So it was a real privilege there. But the other issues, we discussed them on board.
Okay. Yeah. Now, Ken, besides being a member of besides being a vice chair of the Dandora Stadium Management Committee, maybe what else have you been doing, of course, to improve the sports, the sport that is football?
Yeah, actually, I've been secretary of Dandora All-Stars Football Club for the last 10 years. I was the secretary. So in my capacity, you have to source some small funds for your team, amenities like uniform, footballs. You have to knock on the door of well-wishers and former players. You have to be organized. For you to get these things, you have to be really organized. I think we've done a good job in Dandora. I can't complain. The players are well kitted, not like long time ago. Yeah, footballs are there, cons are there. It's just about the players themselves now to take the opportunity and go to the next level.
Now, as you mentioned, you also have a number of former players involved in the whole effort to popularize the sport, make it better for those playing at the moment. But we've had situations whereby, and we've discussed, it's a sports management angle, whereby what happens to those players once they want to move to, let's say, a team that plays in a top tier, not necessarily the KPL, maybe the NSL, or they even want to, go play in Tanzania for Simba or Yanga or some team. How do we ensure that those players are really managed? Because we've had over the years cases of really talented players, but they never really got to, show anything for it. At least go and play for another team and actually prosper.
Luckily in Dandora, we have numerous players who have gone to become superstars in their own. We have Joanna Omolo now, who is playing his trade in Europe. We have Jerry Santos, who is the secretary of K4 now. We have Kataka, we have Eric Ochieng, who have won KPL awards. We have so many cases of players who have made it. And luckily, the few who have not made it has been bad luck, like problems like injuries. They really tie our hands up because you find like a player when he gets bad injury, it's really difficult financially because even the league is not very cheap. It's really expensive, this professional league. We pay around 42,000 and we don't get nothing back. We don't compete for anything and we have to pay transport for our players. We have to buy lunch, food for them. We have to provide for them to keep them intact. So it's really expensive. I can't say it has been cheap. It has been a hurdle, but we have really managed.
Okay.
About players going to other teams, now, before we were a little bit naive, like we didn't used to put them under some sort of contract. But nowadays, I think we draft some small contract for them so that even when they move to other teams, the team can benefit from it, be it long-term or short-term. The team has to get some benefit. Now we are putting them under contract. Before it was not the case. Like we really released some very good players and we didn't get nothing in return. But we learned from that. Yeah.
Okay, now, being for the stadium, it has been around for a while, even before the renovation works came into play in 2018 and whatnot. But then again, the players who practice on that ground, are they, let's say, is it like a camp whereby you guys say, hey, us training in this ground means at least at some point we'll have a team or an organization whereby we bring even more players into the fold? A great example is maybe Maisa, which I'm sure some players who play at the stadium are also interested in, they actually travel all the way to Komarok, Maisa, honestly, to get some basic learning training on issues pertaining to football. But are we at a point whereby we can expect to see, let's say, Dandora Stadium organization become like Maisa itself?
Yeah, I think that's where we are heading to with the stadium. Not being local alone. Even if you see football all over the world, the stadium is the biggest thing. You can see even big teams like upgrading their stadium. You've seen Arsenal do it. You've seen Tottenham. So it means the stadium is a focal point of success in football.
Yeah.
So for us, we have big plans with the stadium. Like we know now, the kids who are coming up, they won't be shy when they play in the stadium. They'll have this experience at a very early age, which will help them. Even now, when they have to move to KPL team and SL, they won't be fazed by the atmosphere. So the stadium really brings professionalism because the amenities are there. There's a gym. So with the right coaches, they'll be getting really good training.
Okay.
Yeah, because it has been a hurdle playing in stone stadiums.
True.
Yeah, with the injuries, now things like injuries, they can be really prevented when the stadium is okay.
You should have a good pitch to play on.
You'll have a good pitch to play on. You'll have a gym there for your recovery session and stuff, which are very vital in football.
Okay. Now, Ken, of course, will be telling us what the completion of the stadium will mean, not only for those players who play around there, but also for the community at large. But of course, before that, we're going to be taking you to Kilimo House, where Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munga is launching the Coffee Revitalization Project Phase 1. Well, we're going to be taking you there, so kindly let's have a listen in before we continue the interview.
To make before you want to respond, is that I wanted also to point out to you that already the Cherry Advance Fund is working, and you need to work with your cooperatives to sign into it. Some cooperatives are already signed into it, and they are receiving the money, and they are also receiving fertilizer and other inputs. I know some fertilizer has already been transported to KNTC. Can you give us the details? The KNTC gentleman is here. He can tell us in specific terms where he has already, transported fertilizer. But I know some cooperatives, Muranga, Meru, Nyeri, Kiambu. Any other county?
Just the three.
Those are the three counties that have already requested for the fertilizer and signed into this program. So we are requesting you also and governors to help us deliver this information to your cooperatives so that they can sign into the Cherry Advance Fund. And what is required is simply for them to give a commitment that once the coffee is sold, that money will be the first charge on the sales. Those commitments and guarantees that we require, because we don't want this money also to be distributed and then it is lost and it's supposed to be a revolving fund, is not paid back. So it is a loan to cooperatives attracting only 3% of the value, 3% interest, and once your coffee is sold, you pay back as a first charge. So those are the commitments we require from the cooperatives to sign on, and then they are able to be given the money, or they are given support in terms of inputs, whichever they choose. And we would like to onboard all the cooperatives that are available for this support. Thank you. Unless there is... yes. Governor, Sema.
I'll support my chairman there, of agriculture, and also the ones that were given to us by Governor Iguru. The issue of marketing, the issue of, she suggested setting up a price, so that
Well, of course, Agriculture CS, apologies, Cabinet Secretary Peter Munga, talking about the revitalization process. And of course, amongst some issues discussed, of course, challenges revolving around coffee production. And, well, he talked about wanting to improve the efficiency of the farmer cooperative societies. And he also added that technology shall be a big factor in that. Well, a more comprehensive report shall be coming your way in our subsequent bulletins, so remember to stay tuned into KBC Channel 1. Now, back to the interview at hand. Obviously, we're talking to John Cheng, who is the Vice Chairman of the Dandora Stadium Management Committee. Now, Ken, as I mentioned before, we went to Kilimo House, of course. What does the completion of this stadium mean when it gets complete? Just the construction of it. What does it translate to for most of the players who play there and for the community at large?
It's huge. Actually, it's very huge. The anticipation is there that things will not be the same again. Because once the stadium is completed, the amenities will be there, and they are really classy amenities. Mm-hmm. We have a very big and beautiful gym there, which means our player will be getting the best level of exercise that they can be offered. Mm-hmm. And also, with the pitch coming there, it will provide a chance for local lads to showcase their talents. You know, once we have the stadium, it's easy even to organize friendly match with these big teams, because at least they'll know they're coming to play in a good surface. Yes. So it's easy to attract them to be playing there. And once we get that chance, our players will also get the chance to showcase their talent once we're playing friendly with these big teams. Yeah, because it's a hurdle nowadays. You can't expect us in our old pitch to attract a team, maybe like Gor Mahia, to come and play a friendly match there. Mm-hmm. But now they'll know they're coming to a good stadium with good amenities. Mm-hmm. So it will be very easy to attract these kind of teams. And with these kind of teams, and with the kind of talents we have in Dandora, I know the lads will get a chance to be joining these big teams, because they are really talented lads. It's not like rocket science that you can't identify a talent yes. when you see one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we have been involved in the industry, and also they have good role models, by the way. Mm-hmm. So it's like they believe in themselves. It's only the chance that is needed. Likely the stadium has come in the right manner and the right time for them. Economically, also, I think with the revenue and the memorandum of understanding that we have signed with the county government, we want our players, like the revenue which has been generated, like if they get a percentage to cater for their needs, I think that will be crucial to buy amenities like football, you know, and even if it's possible, if they can get something, then that's our dream. Mm-hmm. Also, the stadium, and when the matches come by, we'll be really involving our local players, because issues like match stewards and all, we want to empower them through that, you know, so that at least they can earn some little money. On the outer perspective of the stadium, like the community is really, really, really motivated. Mm-hmm. Like you could see, like some people have started setting up hotel, restaurants, you know, because they want to tap the benefit, the economical benefit of the stadium. Mm-hmm. And business won't be as usual. Like the transport sector obviously will generate some income, because people have to move to come to the stadium. They have to move from far. Mm-hmm. The restaurants also are there, the hotels. Also, lodges also are being put up, because you have to anticipate, like there are some teams maybe who might take camp there in the stadium. Mm-hmm. So at least they have to get their needs by around the stadium. Yes. Yeah, footballers like that way, like they can get all things just nearby.
Just around there.
Yeah, that's what great team managers do. They want all the facilities to avoid indiscipline among player and commotion. So I think all those benefits are there. The local small local traders, the ice cream sellers, the njugu people, yes. Peanuts, they really enjoy, because this many people in Dandora, maybe they live from hand to mouth, and you find that it will be economically beneficial to them once the stadium is put up.
Okay. Now, finally, as we wind up, on numerous occasions we've had stadiums being renovated, but then again we've had incidents whereby, or reports whereby athletes are not allowed to access the facilities. As you mentioned, the gym, the amenities, including the gym and everything, they're not allowed to. Of course, you have stadium management giving out valid reasons, talking about maybe they're trying to minimize the wear and tear of the stadium and the amenities. But what guidelines do you guys have as the Dandora Stadium Management Committee to ensure that each and every team or organization that pays to use the facility, that is the stadium and its facilities, its amenities, what guidelines are there to ensure that you're going to reduce the wear and tear? Because we've had a situation whereby Camp Toyo, a very good pitch, but if we're being honest, you can obviously tell that it's not what it used to be, because you have numerous teams training on the same ground. You have matches being played. You have a team coming in at 6, it's done at 8. Another team coming in at 8, it's done at 10. You can have 6 or 7, 8 teams in a day. What are you doing to ensure that we won't have a repeat of that?
Okay, like for the artificial turf, I think we have talked to some specialists who will be guiding us on the wear and tear and the usage, the number of hours which are proper to use per day, like let's say around 8 hours. We've learned also from Camp Toyo, like the wear and tear, which come through overuse. So it's our duty to come up with a proper timetable so that we can accommodate more teams as possible, but also putting in mind that we can't overuse the amenities which are there. And also in our long-term plan, we have to come with some plan that will make us, maybe when we're generating revenue, so that we find ourselves that once the wear and tear has taken its toll, we can still have enough money to refurbish the carpet. So we have to come up with those long-term projects, because I think for an artificial turf to get worn out, it takes around 6 years. So by that period of time, with the proper use, you have to come up with a plan that will have this money by the time it has worn out.
Okay. Now, thank you very much, of course, John Ken Oching, for sparing us the time here at KBC Channel 1 to talk about sports infrastructure. And obviously, we shall be there to unveil the stadium with you guys once it's complete, after everything returns back to normal. Exactly. Now, for the viewers, we shall be getting into our next interview in a few, whereby we shall be talking about the role of teams to the community, especially the community-based clubs, and especially at a time like this, whereby we are battling the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to be talking about that with Nairobi City Stars CEO, that is Patrick Korir, but after the break. See you shortly.
This Monday on KBC Channel 1.
Sijalishwi na motives zingine anaweza kuwa nazo, and neither should you.
Don't get me wrong. I would have sold my soul to Abasi to get her money back.
Everything is gone, Abasi. Why would Mom do that?
To protect you?
From what?
You got rid of it?
Yes.
How?
Julia and I burnt it.
I need to know about everything that's going on.
Of course.
I told you that I'm not going with him. Please, just call a taxi.
Elena.
Since late last year, the coronavirus COVID-19 has emerged as a serious healthcare threat. This is an infection that has gone global and no one has been spared. The government, through the Ministry of Health, has put in measures to keep Kenyans safe against COVID-19, which is currently rampant around the world, with new confirmed infections and death cases daily. Such sanitization and screening of visitors at this border post and across every entry point in the country is very vital in preventing the spread of the disease in the country.
I'm very happy about the screenings that are going on in Tanzania and Kenya. I think it's very proactive that you're thinking about stopping it at the border so that it does not spread.
It can lead to an outbreak of epic proportions. In order to prevent that, the government has instituted measures to keep Kenyans safe.
The facility has all the equipment you need, from handling a basic patient up to ICU setting.
However, you also have a role to play in preventing spread of infections.
Members of the public are encouraged to remain vigilant as the risk is still high. Let's maintain basic hand and respiratory hygiene.
It's just our general hygiene, okay? And that now means at workplaces, we should ensure that our work surfaces are clean.
Always ensure that mmefanya proper sanitation ya mikono. Every time na board matatu, lazima ni sanitize mikono.
We have faced many severe challenges as a nation, and we have always found a way to rise above them. COVID-19 is no different, and will overcome the pandemic. Stop coronavirus. Follow all directives from the Ministry of Health. Wash your hands properly.
Welcome back to Sports Check, and maybe for the last segment or the last interview, as I mentioned before the break, we're joined by Nairobi City Stars CEO. That is Patrick Korir, not a new face to most of our audience, as he used to be an analyst, obviously, actually before he ventured into, the administration bit of the club. Thank you very much, Korir, for giving us the time at KBC Channel 1. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for the invite.
Yes. Now maybe we can get down to business, literally.
Yes.
At a time whereby we have nothing in sports actually happening, matches and whatnot, and that is what keeps sports going, especially for a club like yours, Nairobi City Stars, and the team being a community-based team, maybe. What are the roles, do you think, or your view on that the community, that the club should be providing to the community in such times?
Well, I think that will depend on the team setup. I'll just give you a very quick background. City Stars was bought out by a foundation, the Jonathan Jackson Foundation. And in the planning for both entities, the club and the foundation, was that the foundation will concentrate on offering community based services. But then now that they bought the club, members of the club, I included, will become ambassadors to some of those services that they'll provide. Now, the coronavirus pandemic, of course, it's very unfortunate because it's put a stop to all sporting activities. We are waiting for the day that we can reboot from that. But in the meantime, what happens? There was a situation. So you can't go to work, you've been asked to work from home. There are a lot of people who depend on those who are in office to make a living. So you don't come to the office, someone else is denied a revenue because that office is closed. And very many other opportunities got shut. So you find that there are a lot of people who stay in the communities with nothing in particular to do because of this pandemic. So that posed a situation. So you find that you can't earn, and if you can't earn, you can't feed your family. So you're there looking at each other in the house. So there was now need to help out such families, the very vulnerable families. And what the Jonathan Jackson did was to step up by initially putting in a package where we went to Kawangware and we identified the most affected families and we started giving them food. So we give them a hamper that can actually feed a family for about 4 or 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a family of 4. So that's where we started. But then along the way, we partnered with some people. I'd like to mention Team Pankaj, who are also doing the same. They'd rallied around corporates to come on board and try and help some of these families. So we partnered. So they're doing the collections, and as a JJF, we're now taking that to the communities. So on the part of Nairobi City Stars, so we said the foundation has this initiative. So we now as the ambassadors, so went back to the regional plan, which was now we become ambassadors to their services. And we rallied our players, and we went to some of these communities. And together, I think we gave about 10,000, hampers to about 10,000 families across Kibera, Kawangware. I remember we're in Deep Sea, in Parklands. And even beyond that, the hampers specifically for adolescent girls, and that was also distributed to quite a number of communities. And that is now the role that we plug in and play. But it's not to say that all clubs can do the same, because what is the structure of that club? So if a club has that structure, then it's possible for you to do that. And I'd like to say that as we're doing that as City Stars, a lot of clubs called in, by the way, and said, you know what, we are at home, you train in the morning, and then for the rest of the day you have nothing to do. Can we join in and help out with some of this distribution? And we said, yes, that's very possible. However, something happened in Kibera, and the government put a stop to some of this distribution. So we are still in between that phase where we are trying to see what next, so that we can resume what we had started. Yeah.
And we can also obviously talk about the players' welfare, because we are in difficult times whereby most teams cannot even afford to. It was worse before the pandemic. You had teams, even top-tier teams, unable to pay their players. But then again, for your company, for your organization, that is the Jonathan Jackson Foundation, to which you're the CEO of Nairobi City Stars, maybe what have you put in place, as plans you've put in place to ensure that the players are well taken care of? And because at the end of the day, the relationship the club has with the players also translates to their performance and what they do on the pitch, what they put out on the pitch.
Well, I'll say the situation is very dire. If I look at it globally in terms of other clubs, revenues have been dipping. I was reading research, or rather a report that was done in 2010, whereby the average attendance of big matches, your AFC Gor, Sofapaka, was at about 19,000. So if half of those people paid, it means the home team had money to bank, which means they could use money for well-being of their players. However, those numbers have dropped over the years to an extent where people don't go to the stadium. They follow games on Twitter and Facebook. So revenues for clubs has been a problem. So if a club doesn't have sponsors, then it's a big, big problem. Now, when I come to City Stars, in this period where the pandemic has hit and that it has had, us taking our players to go to the communities, we're giving them a small token. So they're actually making something despite the situation we're in. So for every day someone came out and went to give out something in Kibera or went to Deep Sea to give out something, we had something little to give them. So we are keeping them busy throughout the day, and they're taking home something. But for other clubs where you don't have such initiatives, it's a problem, because what happens is economy has been hit. So Munga, if I'm not making money and you depend on me, how do I pay you?
Exactly.
I can't. It's a problem. And it's a problem that a lot of clubs will have. And I think away from the corporate clubs, you'll get to hear of a lot of clubs not paying their players. That is going to happen. It's the reality. Because if the person who finances you can't make money, where do you expect them to get money to pay you? As much as it's in your contract that they'll pay you by the end of the month.
Where is the money?
Where's the money? I don't make. I can't pay you. Yeah. If I promise you lunch and I can't make money, how do I take you for lunch? I just tell you it's not possible.
Exactly.
Until such a time when I can afford it.
Yeah.
You may take offense, but it's the reality.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
Okay, now let's talk matters football now, because as we're all aware, most leagues in the world have been stopped, except in Belarus. God knows what they're thinking. But look at it.
And Burundi.
And Burundi actually resumed their league
Burundi
2 weeks
resumed.
ago, actually.
Yeah.
But now moving forward, maybe.
Turkmenistan also resuming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to tell me, to confirm or tell us if there has been conversation around the resumption of the league. When can we at least, a date at least? Because you see, we have a tentative date as to when some of the European leagues might return. They gave a June 8th timeline. But then again, here in Kenya, do we have those conversations? Because a while ago, I was talking to one of the stakeholders, and they said nothing. Like, they're not at a point whereby they're even having the conversation with the government.
You know what, Richard? It's a wait and see. It's dependent on so many things. First things first. Do you want to play and risk your players and their families? You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So you want to wait until it's convenient for you to get back to the pitch. Now, when do we get back to the pitch? If you want to ask someone at FKF, they'll tell you they don't know. You know why? Every day we watch the news and we watch the CS for health, telling us the numbers have increased by another 10.
True.
The deaths by another 1. So it's dependent on some of those things until when that curve flattens and we see numbers dropping. You will never know when you'll resume. Right now, our players are on a daily program for exercise, and they keep asking, for how long are we going to do that, to do this? And I'm like, I don't know. Just keep doing it, because when the dates are announced that the games will resume, you need to be fit. So if you pause, because it's an unknown, you know the worst thing, Richard, is you're sitting there and you don't know when. You don't know if it's May that you'll be back. You don't know if it's June. You don't know if it's July. You just don't know. It's dependent on how the pandemic is affecting us. As long as the numbers are being announced that they're going up, it means we'll have to wait for longer.
Yeah.
Now, do not look at other countries, because what is their scenario? China, for example, some clubs have resumed. You know why? They contained the pandemic in a way to a point where the numbers have dropped. In other countries, they've increased, like Spain and Italy. It's looking so bad in the US. They can't start any sporting activities anytime soon. So it's really dependent on a lot of factors. That's where we are at.
Actually, the main reason for asking that question was we are looking at a situation whereby we're not sure, as you said, it's a wait and see.
Yeah.
But then again, I asked that because I'm trying to look forward when the pandemic is over, because at some point it needs to. But what I mean is, we'll have this question of, hey, do we resume with the league? We are in April.
Yes.
Actually, 10 days
towards
to
the
May.
end of April.
Exactly, May, June, July, August.
Yes.
And that is when most calendars actually come to a close. Most.
Towards the end of May.
Yeah, sorry, apologies, yeah, because August is the beginning of another season.
Let's just say we've got another month to wrap up the league.
To wrap up exactly.
Yeah, to wrap up
that
the
is
leagues.
that was actually my main point, or my main concern. Have we sat and talked about, hey, it's looking really bad. So if the situation persists in the next 1 month, the league shall be done away with. For Nairobi City Stars, you were actually leading the National Super League standings.
Yes.
Meaning you guys were actually to get the priority for the teams being promoted to the Kenya Premier League.
I'll tell you my thoughts. Realistically, for the next 1 month, we're not going to play any games.
Exactly.
We'll probably play games from some point in June. Probably the second week of June. That is assuming the numbers start going down. We are told that recoveries are higher than the numbers of people who are infected. So there has to be that turn in numbers. So realistically, for now, 1 month, I'll be sitting at home with my players and chatting and asking ourselves what happens next. Now, because it's affected everyone, as much as the league should have ended in May, realistically, this is not in our making.
Yeah.
And it's affecting all leagues. It means there has to be a consideration to delay this current season, which means also delay the next season.
Calendar, exactly.
That one just has to be in place.
That's
So
that's option number one.
That's option number one. So if that's option number one, we start playing in June. In the NSL, we are top of the table. We had 10 games to go. It takes me back to the 2018-19 season, where we had a transitional season. You remember, we had to switch our calendar. So the league was sandwiched within 6 months. So from December to mid-June. And I'll tell you, in December 2018, City Stars played 5 games. In January, February, March, April, and May, played 6 games each of those months. And then the final games, I think there were 4. We played them in June. 10 games, if you play 6 games in a month, and another 4 the next month, it means within 6 weeks, a month and a half, you'll be able to complete those games. I will vouch for us to sit and wait until the day we can play those games, and we look for 6 weeks, and we play those 10 games, and we finish the league. The same for the KPL. However, if it's not practical that we resume games in June, and let's say, I'm talking about June resumption, and let's say the resumption has to be August, it's too long. Other scenarios will have crept in, and I'll just tell you in a bit. Then what happens? You go back to the rules of the game. The rules of the game that govern Kenyan football states in Rule 2.5 and 2.6. If you've not played 75% of the games. Now, when I look at the games we've played 26 out of 36. It's about 72.2%. So we've not met that threshold of 75%. So what happens? You go back to the end of the first leg and use the standings at the end of the first leg as your final standings for the season. That's what happens. So you go back to December, the final standings as at December, you consider that, I mean the standings as at the end of December, you consider that as your final standings for the season, which means there's a direction. The COVID-19 is a force majeure. There's nothing we can do about it. It just happened. But at least there's a ruling in the rules that can give us direction on that. So either way, there's a clear direction on what needs to happen. So who do you promote? Who do you relegate? Go back to the standings at the end of the first leg, and you can tell how you'll go. Now, if you go into June, the way I said, and play your games, these are the scenarios. At City Stars, we have about half the players whose contracts expire in June. And a lot of clubs, what they do is that you give player contracts to last a season. Now, the leagues are supposed to have ended in May. So you'll find that a lot of clubs, their player contracts end in May. Some of them end in June. So if you play your games beyond that period, it poses another problem. I have a player that I need to field, but his contract has expired.
And he's no longer a member.
And he's no longer
a player of this squad.
A bona fide member of your squad. So what happens? So there has to be very serious considerations. Probably extend their playing card by another 1 month. You as the employer, you'll have to figure out how to do, what to do now that their contract has expired, but you still have to finish your games and he's still on board. You still need that player because he was part of your season. So those are the other dynamics that come up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is assuming the federation. As you say, it's not a situation that anyone has caused, really.
It's not.
Exactly. So hopefully even the federation has to take that into consideration.
Yes.
Because we were talking about even the transfers, because we were talking about issues such as even in other leagues, a situation whereby we have players saying, hey, I can't play in these games. Man, I just need to leave. My contract is over.
And that will happen, by the way. You'll put a player in the lineup, and then he'll tell you, oh, coach, you know my contract expired end of May. We're in June. So I can't take to the pitch until I get an extension of the contract. What do you do?
Give the extension.
Other issues come up. Yeah. You see, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Now, you want to extend some of these contracts because you're moving from this league to the next. Because what happens is you find that you need some players for a certain period.
Yeah.
After that period, you need a certain caliber of players. So are you going to extend just for that 6 weeks that I talked about? or for another season, you see it complicates issues. Yeah.
Okay, now finally, tell us what you think the COVID-19 pandemic, the changes that it's bound to bring along. The transfers challenge we've talked about, but then
contracts.
Yes. But then again, even if all this was to be done with by May, and as you mentioned, matches can resume in June.
Yeah.
You still have a situation whereby people will not be thinking of, I need to go watch a football match. People won't be thinking of that. So maybe, what do you do in such a situation? Or you just hope that, well, with time, everything will go back to being normal?
Well, right now we've just gone back to default, where you even forgotten how sport feels like. So it will take us a while to get back there. Even if the games are to start, you'll have all these players who are unfit. You'll have unfit fans because you're not used to watching. You've been on a break for a very long time. I mean, that will affect a lot of things in terms of the sporting industry. But what do we do, Munga? There's nothing much you can do. It has changed a lot, and I'll tell you from my perspective, how I've looked at it is, I've taken time to study my players better because of this period. I'm doing a lot of interviews with them. I'm getting to learn their backgrounds, the clubs they were in, the schools they were in, doing very comprehensive interviews. So it's helping me internally. I'm doing statistics, so I can tell you how many passes a player's had in the season so far. It's given me time to do some of those things. However, when the season starts, trust me, it's going to be a roller coaster, game after game like that. Contract issues on the table, you're trying to sort out, and to be a bit different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now maybe a message to the fans, Nairobi City Stars and football fans at large, things and to, in regards to the guidelines given by the World Health Organization and the government as well. I see you're taking one of them, hydrating, which is a crucial part of that. So maybe.
Yeah, my mask is over there. I do want to wear one and make you look bad.
Thank you for that consideration.
This is what I'll say.
Do
not take this pandemic lightly.
True.
I know I've argued with people why they're not wearing a mask and they're like, hii kitu siwezi vaa, hii serikali inatuambia hii hatutaki. Always remember, you step out, you go back home, you have a family, you have kids in the house, you have people in your house. So if you get affected, it means you infect your family, and by extension, you affect other people. So let's stay safe. Let's follow the guidelines. Sanitize, wash your hands as much as possible, wear your mask. I mean, it's not too much to ask because you could get it from anywhere. You don't know from who. So let's just stay safe, keep our family safe until such a point when things go back to normal.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Patrick O'Reilly, Chief Executive Officer, Nairobi City Stars. Well, before the leagues stopped, Nairobi City Stars was leading the log, leading Bidco, which was in second place. And, well, all we have to do at the moment is wait, follow the instructions, the guidelines, stay safe, so that when the pandemic is over, at least we can go back to, enjoying the lovely game of football as well as other sports. Now that puts a pin on today's edition of Sports Check. It has been great having your company. I'm Richard Munga, and Byron Abuli has joined us as the sign language interpreter, and he will be taking you through Tamrini, which is up next with Nancy Okware. Have a good day.
This Monday on KBC Channel 1.
Sijalishwi na motives zingine anaweza kuwa nazo, and neither should you.
Don't get me wrong. I would have sold my soul to Abasi to get her money back.
Everything is gone, Abasi. Why would Mom do that?
To protect you?
From what?
You got rid of it.
Yes.
How?
Julia and I burnt it.
I need to know about everything that's going on.
Of course.
I told you that I'm not going with him. Please, just call a taxi.
Elena.
Next on Corner.
I didn't find the money to gain anything. I found her because she's a child.
I'll tell you this. He has something that rubs me the wrong way.
Walter. It doesn't hurt having an Oyange in our corner. But be careful of Pamela. She's barely a kid. Don't be fooled.
Mbona unakuwaga na interest sana na hiyo gym? Na vile wewe ni sonko.
On the next episode of Elena's Ghost.
Why can't the child just be born already? I'm so sick and tired of being cooped up within these four walls.
Not gonna wait any longer, Julia. The moment has arrived for you to transfer the old woman's fortune to me. It's time for me to have my inheritance.
What's going on? Miss, what were you going to tell her?
I told you that I'm not going with him. Please, just call a taxi.
Elena.
KBC, in collaboration with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, is broadcasting enhanced out-of-class learning on radio, television, and online. Catch the lessons every weekday on KBC Channel 1 from 2 to 4 p.m. on KBC English Service and 15 FM from 9:15 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Radio Taifa from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. KBC English Service, Radio Taifa, and 15 FM are also available countrywide on the free-to-air Signet digital TV platform, or log on to www.kbc.co.ke for live streaming, or download the KBC Online app on Google Play Store. Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, ensuring learning no matter what.
Next on Corner.
I can't wait to face him in the ring again.
Sounds like a bromance in the ring.
Bromance.
Services will not be needed on this one.
But I'm the events manager of this place.
Pamela, stop being childish.
I borrowed some cash from money lenders.
You mean loan sharks?
I had a plan.
What have you got against Wangoi?
It's just odd how she's always helping homeless strangers, but is indifferent.
Tried scare tactics on your mother. Why?
Because
there were things in that file